Well, that worked perfectly, Ivan. It's all you. So everyone, welcome here, episode 462 here at Tropical Nomad. So every Monday, 6 o'clock, come meet each other, 6:25, 6:30, we go live. So today's episode is all about health. As you know, the first Monday of every month, we collaborate with my sister Tracy, donate, interesting word, Health Hub Bali Tourism Initiative here in Bali and beyond. So today we're talking about better medical care in Bali. So our special guest today, Alex Connect, is the expert here in Bali, being the Director of Growth at Padma Medical Group for over a decade, and he has experience managing Padma Care Services, a medical concierge and advocacy service for expats. Now, one of the things, just talking earlier on with Alex, one of the things which I think a lot of expats face here is, what do I do if I get sick? Where do I go? Maybe do they speak English? So today's talk will be about doctors, nurses, hospitals, ER, and coordination of those services. So it will be an action-packed episode for you if you want to know anything on those topics. So firstly, let's give a round of applause to Alex. Welcome into the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
And look, question which is not on our sheet, but you know how we roll now. What got you started in medical services and just the whole kind of area, the Hippocratic Oath? But what got you started?
Well, people always ask me if I'm a doctor, and then I have to let them down and say, well, not really. I just run the business side of it. So I guess that is the way I found my way in, is, working with some friends on the business end of trying to figure out how to get medical care at a decent level to people that needed it here. We started with Indonesian citizens that want to go work abroad, and they need to have a certain level of health, and the companies that recruit them need to be confident that their workers are healthy before they hire them. So it seemed like a good match, and so I jumped right in.
And Padma, because people here may not know the enormity or the gravity of Padma. So can you give us, a little bit more weight behind Padma so people get an idea of just what the scale is and how successful you've been?
Yeah, you're too kind. We've been around for about 17 years. We do somewhere between 20 and 25,000 medicals a year for Indonesian workers. We have 4 branches that we work in. The main branch is in Bali, Surabaya, and then we have partner clinics in Jakarta and in Jogja. So that's a lot of people. There's about 45,000 seafarers at sea right now from Indonesia, mostly working on cruise ships. They need a medical every 2 years, excuse me, so you do the math on the market share. It's pretty good. I always say that we have 10 of the top 10 cruise companies in the world, and then kind of 15 of the top 20. So we know them all, and we've been doing it for a long time, built reputation and trust with those guys. And in the last 10 years or so, we've expanded that out of doing only medical work and diagnostics for folks that want to go abroad, but then also when folks get sick overseas and then need to come home to get treated, we do that work as well. So we coordinate the care. Originally, we only did it in Bali. Now we do it across the country for 4 or 5 of those major cruise companies, and then a couple other folks as well. And that gave us access to kind of figuring out, hey, who knows what they're doing here? And not that people don't know what they're doing, but there's a lot of, let's say, variation in the quality. And so we've kind of found a way, on our website, it'll say we spend 40 to 50 billion a year on medical services in Bali. And doing that, you find out who's good and who's not.
Spending 40 to 50 billion a year, rupiah, in case some people are wondering, right, on medical services here in Bali, in Indonesia, sorry.
That's just in Bali. Yeah, we spend more in the rest of Indonesia. But, Bali, when it comes to kind of the Padma Care focus on expat health, we've tried it elsewhere in Indonesia, and we were talking before the show. There's like nuances in the way that medical systems work, especially in Indonesia, where, they're particularly poorly suited in Bali to deliver good healthcare here. And so we found a really interesting market niche with the expat coverage here and the coordination concierge service for Padma Care because it's so difficult to get consistent good care in Bali. Yeah.
Thank you. If you just pass that microphone to Tracy. So look, Health Hub Bali had a person earlier on basically ask, what is it? Well, what is Health Hub Bali? So I'll give you a quick description now, and then Tracy, so you know what's coming. Biohacking Bali, what happened yesterday? Be nice to update people. So Health Hub Bali, health tourism initiative, which is making progress in Bali for almost a decade, well, over a decade, having helped significant numbers of people from patients, practitioners, hospitals, government, and continues to develop and make progress. HHB, as it's known as, Health Hub Bali, connecting you to better health. So Tracy, you're the founder of Health Hub Bali. Now, is there anything that you'd like to add maybe to the description of what I just said? And obviously, yesterday we had this great event called Biohacking Bali, which was organized by the Health Hub Bali, or the HHB team. Very successful. It was at the Trans Resort. Over 100 people, some of the best speakers, thought leaders, practitioners of biohacking, I think, in Bali and from different parts of the world. So that was a great kickoff. So please feel free to chime in and what else you'd like to shed some light on about tonight's episode.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob, for that. Is this working?
Yeah, working.
All right, thank you. Yeah. So yesterday we had the biohacking event, which was introduction to what biohacking is. It's about our biology and hacking that. But that is next level health. Tonight we're talking about the medical, because that's where we start, and that's all about baselines. And then how to navigate that, how to screen, how to prevent and personalise health. And that was also very much about the base of yesterday's talks as well from the experts. But after you have that information, what do you do? And that's where we have got nearly an exhaustive list of expats here who have got experience in this field to up-level and especially in the conversation of longevity and disease in reverse and age in reverse. So that was mainly yesterday. But today is how do we navigate the system today here.
Beautiful. And just to add a little bit more to Tracy, so founder of HHB, Health Hub Bali, trained in functional medicine, applied treatments, health journeys with a experienced background in chronic disease, autoimmune, cancer, and somatic options for creating the whole health model here in Bali. Okay, I think we can maybe get started on tonight's show. So there's 3 takeaways. I'm going to quickly get to them, and Tracy can probably hand the mic back to Alex. Okay, so 5 most important things to know about getting good care here in Bali. What is a personal medical plan, and how do you make one? And what are the barriers to Bali being the medical destination? So I guess we start from the first, maybe the 5 most important things to know essentially about getting good health care or good medical care here in Bali.
Cool. So I think what we'll do is take one at a time and then see how far we get. Yeah.
Love that.
Because there's a long way to go down all of these conversations. But we'll go there in order in terms of, I guess, what I and my team think of as important. So we'll start with doctors. The variance. So what's the point? The variance between the skilled doctors and the, let's call them not as skilled doctors in Bali, is significantly wider than you'll find in most other places, and there's a lot of drivers for that.
Welcome to Canggu.
A lot of it is education based, but there's some other. That was bonus.
We're still in Canggu.
And so the difficulty is you go into one hospital and they have a set of doctors that they want to refer you to keep you inside the hospital. And those doctors aren't always the best at what they do. Let's put it that way. And so maybe you guys have friends, or maybe I'm one of your friends that you call and ask, hey, I have this issue, who should I go see? And most people that have lived here long enough will have some of an informal network, but there are also people that either don't have that or isn't worth the investment of energy to find that. And it's really important about who you see when you go see a doctor, especially on the specialist side.
You know, one thing you mentioned earlier on, which took me not by surprise, but it hit me, as I think it will inform everyone here. You said to me before that it's not necessarily about the hospital,
Right.
but it's about the doctor that you see in that hospital.
Yeah, so at Padmacare, we say we're hospital agnostic. So we work with, I think it's 11 or 12 different hospitals in Bali that we have working agreements with. But we only do that because we want to go see the doctor that's best for that patient, for that issue. And that... the way that the medical system works here, doctors are allowed to have 3 operating licenses, and they will often have like one at a tier 1 medical center, whether it's Siloam or Sangala or something like that, and then a second one at a smaller hospital where they get a better fee structure, and then oftentimes a third where they'll have a private clinic in their home or in what's often a pharmacy, where they'll get a much bigger share of their consultation revenue. And it's all about kind of, I don't know, income optimization for them, which is fair. I mean, that you can't fault them for that. But so, you know, we'll have some issues with getting access to a doctor at a certain place because they're way overscheduled, and then we'll know, oh, their other SIP is here, and we'll send the patient there instead. Yeah. And so, the hospitals, there are some hospitals that have tried to make a brand out of having some of the best specialists in any given area, but no hospital has all of the best specialists. There's not any one hospital that's far and away better. And so you kind of need to pick and choose where you go. The other thing I would just say about doctors and what makes us choose them, just so you can kind of have a reference point, you know, hopefully getting some takeaways from this time that you're investing in hearing about this. The first is that we find that doctors that are, you know, kind of senior, like professor level, which is typically like 60 and above, they grew up in a medical system that was very different, with training that was very different. And so there was very little, if any, continuing education requirement for their medical license. They typically grew up and were educated before the internet was really a thing. And so they are not staying up with the common practices. They're not really engaged with a lot of the associations, medical associations. And so, not that there aren't good ones, but we, as a heuristic, we say, okay, if you're over basically 60, we're not really super interested in working together, because it's just so common to have issues with folks in that demographic that basically aren't interested in hearing other opinions. And as you probably know, in medicine, everybody is unique. Everyone responds differently. It's always good to have different theories and then test them out scientifically to figure out what's working for each individual patient. And no one knows everything. So that's always a big thing. The second thing is, there's a huge stigma here with doctors who are proud, which they should be, and are very much upper class, not knowing English, and then either having one of two reactions, either pretending that they know and then not understanding, which is obviously very difficult when you're explaining symptoms to somebody, or two, which is possibly worse, getting angry that they don't speak English and that you don't speak Indonesian, and then that impacting the care that they deliver. So one of the things that my company does is like act as that, basically that the exchange process. Intermediary to try and get everyone clear on both directions.
Wonderful. And nurses.
So nurses in Indonesia are not nurses like everywhere else. In Indonesia, nurses are there to take doctor instructions. So the way that the medical program works for almost all hospitals, and I'm specifically speaking to inpatient, but that's really what matters. Doctors come around once a day in the morning. That's when they have to be at the hospital. They do rounds in the morning. They typically only do rounds once a day, and they're done. So then they leave instructions with the nurses of what to do for that day, and then they're going to see you again tomorrow. That's it. So where I'm from, where you guys are probably from, nurses they feel a personal mission to look after your comfort, your well-being. They want to make sure, hey, are you having pain? Do you need another pillow? Did you get enough to eat? Are you thirsty? None of those things are the case. In fact, if you call the nurse station and you say, hey, I'm in pain, I need more pain medication, if the doctor didn't say they can give you more pain medication, they can't do anything. And they're quite often, depending on the time of day, either, and depending on the hospital, either barred from contacting the doctor without going up the chain of command, or are very disincentivized from the reactions the doctors give them. So it's a difficult situation, and it's such a change in mentality from what I would expect, because almost everything in the healthcare system here is built out of the framework of BPJS, which is the local national healthcare service, and delivering the best quality outcome for the price, the value, is what BPJS does, and they actually do a pretty good job, and it's subsidized in weird ways, which we can talk about if we want to get into that in hospitals. But the main point is that nurses are pulled in several directions, one of which is through very low-pay BPJS shifts, which are basically loss leaders for the hospital, and so quite often will be asked to work an overnight shift in BPJS ward and then a day shift in the inpatient ward. And so it's like an impossible situation with a different structure of expectation and someone who's exhausted, and it's just not a good recipe.
That's I didn't know that. I mean, Tracy, is there anything you want to say, or we keep on going? We've got a few more.
I have got something.
Yeah.
Say. Keep going.
Okay, cool. And then we can circle back. All right. So we've spoken about doctors, nurses, hospitals.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be next.
So the big thing about hospitals is understand how the pricing structure works. It's a two-axis plane. Okay. On one axis you have the room designation, and the other axis you have your immigration status. And this is the same for every hospital in Indonesia. If you're a local, you get one price, and it's not the same multiplier everywhere, but I'm going to give you a reference point from a hospital in the area that rhymes with Shmilawam. So if a local, you have 1x. If you're Kitas holder, you have 1.2x. If you're a foreigner with a visitor, you are 1.5x. That's the one axis. On the other axis is the room. The rooms go from twin to deluxe to VIP to VVIP. Every hospital has a different name for the different classes of room, but they all have the same essential basis, which is that a deluxe or a twin room is a shared room with a shared bathroom. A superior room, or whatever the next level is a shared room with an individual room with a shared bathroom. A VIP suite or VIP room is a individual room with an individual bathroom, and a VVIP, or the top level, is always a individual room with an individual bathroom and a sitting area. Okay, and you can ask to see what the price list is for those things when you go to the hospital. And when you go to a hospital and you're going to do anything but be in the ER, you have to pick one of these, and they're going to apply everything on that pricing, right? And so if the bottom axis is 1, 1.2, 1.5, the upper axis is basically 1, 1.2, 1.6, and 2. So if you're 1.5 by 2, you're 3x the normal price.
Ooh.
Right?
It works like that. Okay.
And before I got in the medical space here, because I've been here a while, I had issues with how to go to the hospital. And you go and they're like, oh, well, which room would you like? I'm like, well, what are the options? I'm like, well, the super VVIP room is like, 1.2 million a night. And you're like, well, that doesn't seem like a lot of money. $85. I can certainly afford it. I'm sure my insurance will cover it. But what you don't realize is that it goes for everything. All the swabs, all the IVs, all the needles, all the doctor visits, all get a multiplier. Wow. So it's just important to know, like, you can make your own assessment. Everyone here is an individual, and you may want to have your own privacy of a bathroom, or you may not care. You may be trying to basically save some money. It's your choice. And then just to know that other access exists, which is the immigration status, and it's other places that may be illegal. Here it's not. It's the standard. No matter how much you argue, you're not going to change it. They obviously can validate whether you have a KITAS or a KTP, a local document. So it's not that they have to guess. You can't convince them that otherwise, right? And so, again, one of the things that the PodmaCare service offers is we've negotiated with the hospitals to allow all of our members to be on that local rate. So we don't get the 2x, the 1.2, the 1.5 multiplier, which is pretty special.
Whoa. Ooh, take a breath, everybody.
Yeah, that's a lot. Sorry.
That's quite a lot of information. Much of which I didn't actually know, and I believe that judging from the reactions of some of the faces here, I'm not the only one who didn't realize that. So what about now? So we've got the ER. So how does that operate?
All right. So in terms of things that you should know about medical service here and getting good care, I'm focusing on the negative things, or I focus so far on the negative things, and there's lots of stuff that we can do better here in Bali, or in Indonesia in general. And what I don't want people to come away from this is I have to go off the island or out of the country to get medical care. We think we've come up thinking to go to Thailand. All right.
We're talking about that's a separate procedure. We'll talk about that later on. Yeah.
So there is good care to be had here. There is good coordination of care here, but you need to know what you're looking for and you need to get it. And you need to go, you'll get it yourself. You need to be active about it. And so like there can be good inpatient care. There also is decent outpatient care. There's a lot of holistic stuff that we're going to talk about later. The one place where I think Indonesia falls behind everywhere else and there's little chance of having massive improvement is in the ER. So you just need to know that in the ER, because of some cultural stuff and because of the way that the system is structured, it's extremely hierarchical, right? Triage is an emergency situation. Everyone needs to make decisions quickly. And so junior doctors and nurses and everyone in that room, in that department, are following an SOP. Right? And one of the things that an SOP does, typically a standard operating procedure, is that it works 80% of the time. And as I said earlier, everybody's different. Every person's different. Every person's response to trauma and to medicine is different. And SOPs are so difficult to do in the ER because you have so little information. And it gets people into deep, deep trouble here because there are just different shortcuts that happen, not shortcuts, but different heuristics that happen where someone comes into the ER, they've had a bad motorbike accident and they're bleeding a lot, or they have a compound fracture. You can see a bone sticking out of their leg or their arm, right? And the doctor is trained to staunch the bleeding, which is actually a good start, okay? But because that's where they start, they take that issue all the way through completion before, if they do a full body scan, right? And so the issue is that people come into the ER and they leave the ER and they're still really, really hurt and they're still really in danger of dying because they're not getting... There's not someone else to jump in and say, hey, this person, like, you should do like a spine palpation. You should do like, check to make sure their airways are okay. How is their alertness? Like, if they have a TBI, a brain injury. This is not happening. And so like, we always tell patients, first of all, like in our service, it's difficult for us to intervene because it's like military style. Like everyone is following the next instruction up the rung. And in that moment, you cannot intervene as an outsider, right? Even with the best intentions, which is fair. I understand why that is. But the thing is that we tell people, look, just get out of there. Like, get stabilized as best as you can, and then get discharged to an inpatient room. Then we can bring a whole bunch of doctors in there to help you. We can bring a spine surgeon. We can bring an internal medicine doctor. We can bring an osteo person, someone to look at your bones and make sure your joints are okay. Like, we can do all those things. But in the ER, we can't do anything. We're waiting for you to get discharged. So as it relates to you guys, first of all, obviously, it's always don't get hurt, right? Of course, we try not to get hurt, but we do get hurt, right? And the thing is that I hear so many people come and say to me, back to the Thailand conversation, oh, well, my medical plan is I'm just going to go to Singapore or Thailand or do whatever, Penang, if I get hurt. And it's like, well, great. We also do expatriations and repatriations with my business, and we do 10 a year. And the funny thing is that most people that want to go off the island that are really hurt, they can't go. Because it's actually quite a serious thing to do a medical air evacuation. You need to have good O2 stats. You can't have any infarct. You can't have any problems with your heart, right? If they're worried about, if you can't, it's very difficult to fly with oxygen. So like, there's only limited things you can do to fly and get treatment. Otherwise, you're kind of here, which is you've made the choice to be here. So I think that the thing about ER is like, first of all, just try and get stabilized and get out. Really take the time and be persistent about explaining what happened. Make sure you tell everyone what happened because they're not talking, right? Because if you can say, hey, I fell and I hit my head, or I fell and I'm worried about this. I fell, I hit my head. I fell, I'm worried about this. Eventually, someone's going to listen. Right? But it's not necessarily going to be the intake nurse or intake doctor, and it's certainly not going to be the first doctor that looks at you. Right? And so in that case, it's very helpful to have an advocate, like a friend or a family member that can come kind of help you with this. And the last piece is just like, just know that like the trade-off that you're making, and I'm not trying to be super negative, but the trade-off we're making by living in this beautiful place and having all of the things that I'm sure Tracy's going to talk about, with all the options of different and holistic medicine and all the things that kind of fill your soul and what draws people to Bali, right? It's beautiful and it's amazing, but it also comes with the risk of like, hey, if you have an aneurysm, like you have a 50% chance of living, right? Our neurology trauma center here, the only one that exists is in Sangla, which is an hour and 15 minutes from here by ambulance, right? And they have a thing in neurology called the golden hour, and if you don't get the pressure from the brain down in an hour, you have like a super high risk of brain trauma. In downtown Chicago, Illinois, in the United States, people that get shot in the brain have a 95% rate of recovery. Okay? So it's really impactful how quickly you can get good care. Right? And it's just not here. So it's a trade-off. You're making those choices, right? And, you know, there's a lot of people here, all of us included. I live here. I'm never going anywhere. We've made that choice as a family, right? And many other people do, and that's okay. But it's worth to know that, right? It's worth to understand the risk you're taking. Yeah.
And the last part before Tracy chimes in, coordination.
Okay, so I'll try and make this one quick.
No, but actually doing well. Maybe slow down for the non-native speakers.
Fair enough.
That's good. Yeah.
Fair enough. The coordination of care is very difficult. My wife had kidney stones last summer, and it was, if any of you have had kidney stones, very, very painful. And, you know, we know who to send her to because that's my business. And so we went to the best doctor on the island for nephrologist for kidney stones. And he did a procedure, and it was great. And we went up for what's called a control visit, which is like a follow-up to make sure everything's okay. And the day we went, and I wanted to see, I was, you know, doing a little bit of, what do you call that? A case study. So the first day we went for a control, I did it without our service. And we waited for 4 hours and 15 minutes for the appointment. And I asked the doctor, because I'm in the business, I said, how many patients do you have scheduled today? He said 215. He saw us for 90 seconds. His nurse was the one that read the case file. He probably didn't remember her or us, because how could he? He's seeing 250 patients a day times however many 10-day cycle, right? And he did a great job. Everything was great, but like that's not the medicine that I want, but he's the best guy, right? So the second time we went back for the control, we used our service, we got in 25 minutes, which is a lot better, right? My doctor, who's a case manager who manages all of our member cases, called the doctor before and said, hey, you're seeing this patient today. This is the wife of our direct, blah, 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 whatever. And she had this issue, put the stent in, blah, blah, blah. It's been removed. You're going back. And I just want to make sure that, you know, I want to confirm what we're looking for. Okay, looking for no blood in the urine. Great. So then we're going to keep going and blah, blah, blah. He saw us. Hey, F3, how are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And in and out and done. And that was a much better medical experience for me, right? So the thing is that the doctors that are good are also so busy, either you can't get access to them because their schedule is full, or that you get to see them and they have no idea what's going on with you, or haven't had time to read it, or maybe they read it but it's really quick, and that's not the best way to deliver care, right? I mean, they have an incentive to get you know, increase their income and see more patients, and it's all volume driven here. And I accept that, but also, like, if there's a way to have the doctors talk to each other and the medical records transfer between places and so forth, that's truly to the benefit. And like, it is an argument for going to one hospital and staying there because they have the same system and the same medical care. But third thing I talked about with hospitals is that not the doctors, all the best doctors aren't at the same hospital. So then you have, it's like this kind of self-reinforcing problem. So coordination is something that either you're going to do yourself, your family's going to do it, or someone else like us can do it for you.
Thank you very much indeed, mate. I mean, can you pass the mic to me? Round of applause, please, because that was phenomenal already. Woo! Mama. All right, you have a water here as well, by the way, all right? So Tracy, so what, again, you know, Alex was saying, you know, was about the doctors, the nurses, the hospitals, the ER, the coordination. So what comes up for you when you hear all of these points in relation to those, and also obviously Health Hub's role too?
Yep. So what I hear is a fact. These are issues, and if something happens, you want these guys with you or their advice, number one. The second thing is for ourselves, you want the best care, okay? And exactly the same, that sometimes hundreds of patients outside the doctor's surgery. The interesting thing is the best doctors say there's a broken ankle from a scooter accident, one particular doctor, he will still take the time to phone you with information. This will never happen in our country. And yet they've got I know they're working through the night, seeing patients and at the hospital at the same time. So I don't know how that works, but they're the ones you trust. because they know what they're doing and they're skilled. The other point is, from the Health Hub perspective, is second and third opinions. Sometimes I've had a call, someone's in a panic because they want to do surgery very quickly, but just to have other expats around us who are connected with Russia, New York or some other country there, and they understand x-rays, they quickly look at it. We've got an orthopedic person that was there. Later on we could double check. Yeah, that kind of break needed surgery. It was not unnecessary. So you need good advice, expert advice, and not one opinion. If you ask sometimes five doctors, you'll get 5 different opinions. But if you already know their reputation and the skill, and they're basically the only ones that we're dealing with, so the combination there. But we're talking ER, which is like the emergency side. What's coming up is that I know through the Pacific area, New Zealand has taken an interest in caring for all the islands, and they have special conferences for emergency staff, and they wanted to have one here, and I would like to include the emergency teams here. All right. And that was like probably 2 or 3 years ago that was brought up in conversation. So that's something that would make a difference, because I know, and the other part with HHB, we're in conversations with a couple of hospitals where there's been patient issues recently. Sometimes we'll probably go onto the money side of it, but it's basically the patient doesn't understand, and it's going 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. After a week, they're still in these emergency situations. If they need to be there, people are okay with that, but there needs to be another conversation. So that's where the dialogue happens. But once talking, say, to the head chief in charge of the hospital, they will then cut through all that seniority, as from hearing from Health Hub, and that's what's happened even last week. And that was the message. Then the patient comes back super happy. We've got ones liaising there that are, I'm Australian, say an Australian that works within the hospital, but it's mainly the patient needs understanding what procedure's happening, what's next, and what options there are. Yeah, and with that kind of conversation in their English, they're getting it. Yeah, the patient just needed to understand. Otherwise, they're panicking and they're just running out with all tubes hanging on them still.
Usually we have questions later, but I know you've got a little bit more to go. But if you have a question now about this, just raise your hand and we'll get a mic to you. Yeah, so just one over here, Guzman. Is there anything else you wanted to say about that?
What's really nice here is that if we go back to basics, the fundamentals of the medical training is functional for every doctor. The rest of it is basically pharmaceutical. So here, if we go back to basics, especially in Bali, they've got more of a chance of understanding integrative medicine than probably any country, because at heart, that's really what they want. So this is nice. We can say if they've got an infection, which no antibiotic's going to clear. I've had people with tooth infection that's gone to the lymph. They're quite young. Next minute, they're in a coma. They're kept in the intensive care. And it's like they don't come out of there. I would like to get some of the things we talked about in the biological hacking yesterday. If they could clean their blood with ozone, get rid of the pathogens, and then their body can start healing process, we can support it and what we call integrate this. And that's something that's allowed in this country.
Got it. So you have a question?
Yes, one for you, Alex. I don't think you mentioned it, but how do you make money? Is it you mentioned membership or something? So it's a membership base. Is that how Padma works? Or?
Yeah, I'll give you the elevator pitch. Yeah. So Padma Care is a concierge and advocacy service. It's membership based. It's 350,000 rupiah per month per household. So if you're married or have kids or whatever, everyone in your house is one membership. We have a personal health care advisor we call PHA that's assigned to your family. So we have a couple. One would get you guys. They'd introduce themselves. You can call 8 to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week if you have a problem. We mostly work through WhatsApp. If you need a phone call, we can do that too. Those guys are armed with all kinds of information that we've gotten, from what is Bali belly to I've got this weird infection or what I stubbed my toe. I mean, all the way up, right? So they have a lot of information they can help out with. And then if they don't know, we have doctors on call that they can reach out to and say, hey, I had this thing. I have no idea what to do. Tell me what I should do. And so then they'll filter that information back. So that's part of the membership. And then as part of that, we have obviously a vetted list of doctors that we refer to, right? And we can we can, give you that contact information. You can do it yourself, and that's on you. It's free of charge. You can just get it done yourself. But then we have this whole other world where we coordinate care. So we offer, because we have these negotiated deals where we get rid of this Kitas foreigner price, we end up saving our patients somewhere between 30 and 35% off the total bill. And so what we do is, when we're gonna, because basically how that works is we pay, and then you pay us. And so if we do that, then we make the appointment, and there's a small upcharge. There's 100,000, 400,000, 800,000, and $1 million, depending on the level of care you want. 100,000 just gets you the appointment with our rates. 400,000 gets you to skip the line, like I explained before. 800,000 gets you, the doctor is calling the other doctor and making the conversation and following back up, and then you get a English language document that basically articulates what happened in the visit and what the next steps are. And then the $1 million is, which we brushed over earlier, but $1 million is the inpatient or at-home care. So basically, we can send a nurse that'll look after things like getting you a blanket or an extra painkiller or whatever, or pick up your Gojek because you can't leave the room, and all these different kinds of things. And so that's all kind of like, it's like, we think of it like a la carte, right? So you get like the overall support for the membership fee, and then we'll let you know about things that we're doing, and then if you need care, then we can kind of like intervene and help you out at the level that works for you and your family. And and so that's it.
And so just a quick additional one I just thought of is, where does the new, if it's open, the new Bali International Hospital and Sunil fit into the scheme of things over here?
Well, having spoken to Tracy about this extensively, I think we have a different opinion about it. So I'd love to give you my opinion, then I'd love to ask Tracy to give hers. So my main clinic is 10 minutes drive from Bali International Hospital. So that's exciting. The construction was well funded, and they have some pretty good equipment in there. So from that, it's always better to have better equipment. That's always a good thing. I think they have a lot of headwinds that they're going to struggle with. The first is, and we're going to probably talk about it later when it comes to making Bali the destination for medical, but the first, I guess, is regulatory. The first issue, I'll give you three issues that I see. The first is regulatory. Hospitals that receive federal funding have to accept BPJS patients, and the BPJS model is quite flawed for hospitals. For patients, it's excellent. I always tell people, like, look, if you make 10 million rupiah or less a month, like, you can't get a better product in the world than BPJS. But if you make more and you can afford better care, then there's reason that's why I'm saying it. But so if they take federal funding, which is all federal funding, they need to accept BPJS patients, which challenges any service model, because you have to provide service to patients at basically free. I mean, I think internal medicine consultation under BPJS is like 8,000 rupiah. Okay, that's what the doctor charges. When my internist sees a patient, it's 200,000 rupiah, right? A lot different, right? Which is still cheap for international standards. I don't know how many of you guys have seen an internist, but you spend $200 in the U.S. where I'm from, so it's pretty affordable. So the first issue is regulatory. One, because of the BPJS issue. Two, because they've kind of staked their reputation on having international doctors. And while the omnibus bill that passed during COVID, and then the omnibus medical bill that passed a year and a half afterwards, makes a provision to have doctors. International doctors here. There's a whole host of powerful organizations with lobbyists that are extremely incentivized to prevent that from happening. And so far, they've been very successful. And one of the things about, I don't know how long you've been here, but that I've learned, that's for what it's worth, is that it's very difficult to change the status quo here. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of dedicated effort in a very specific direction. And I'm not saying that it can't be done. I'm not saying that it won't be done. It's just going to take longer and more time and cost more money than anybody anticipated. And the hospital was kind of like the brainchild of two politicians, one being the former president and Sandiaga Uno, and they were in political power, and now they're not. And so, yes, there's a bit of a tete, right, between the new faction and the old faction, but it's not the same priority, and so it's gonna take way more than that to get that pushed through, and I just see that that's difficult. The second thing out of the three, and the third one I'll be really quick on, but the second one I think is that they're as far as I know, they're very focused on recruiting international visitors, and I think if anybody who's heard anybody talk about medical, including myself here tonight, that we have some challenges and we have a reputational issue, and it seems farcical to me that they would be successful in recruiting international visitors for medicine when we have such a reputational hurdle to overcome. Not to say that it can't be done, again. Not to say that I'm rooting for that. Not to say that I participate in that. And we're talking about that kind of thing. But man, that's a big lift for one hospital, let alone one province. And the last piece is just, I think they did themselves a deep disservice by putting out this now storied press release where they said they were working with the Mayo Clinic, which was then met with an emergency board meeting by Mayo Clinic, and then a counter press release saying that they had nothing to do with the original thing. When all that happened, and the first press release, because it was championed by Sandy Ono and several others, got picked up in all the papers here and was in a full news cycle. And then the second press release put up at the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota wasn't picked up here. And so everyone still asks me, what do you think about that Mayo Clinic International Hospital? I'm like, yeah. So I feel like they've kind of set themselves an impossible bar that they're never going to hurdle. It would have been so much better to prove through doing and then really impress people, and I think that would have been a much easier thing to accomplish. But I hope it works. It would help us all.
Powerful question, Tracy.
We're asking about
International Hospital?
Yeah, Mayo Clinics influenced that hospital a lot at the beginning. So if you look at the list of equipment that they have there, it's all there. So we're looking at the packages that you can create with the screening equipment and how to use it. Okay, so that's where the gap is, that we see integrative. We've got things here that a lot of other countries we can't access, but we've actually got the equipment here. The same with the Sangla Hospital. They've also got a big 5-story Korean clinic that's amazing. It's like artwork. It's beautiful. But it's how to use all that equipment. So that's where we're working along with these guys. The setup there, as far as a tourist destination, is amazing. The issues here in Indonesia has always been about getting the herbs and the drugs, whatever we need. But that whole area is a totally different, it's got its own immigration, it's got its own customs. So anything we do in Germany, we can do there, basically. So it's just getting the infrastructure beyond the actual doctors that are there and the PPJA system, and then being influenced and just coached along how to service health. So it's health. We're not competing with medical here. I see the future of health as being integrative, and that's where Bali can have the edge on any country, because once they leave there, their process of healing and changing its whole health, we need to reset first. They've got the diagnostic equipment even for the brain, to do the brain scans like they've only got in America. They bought the best equipment, yeah. So it's epic. But how to use it? I've had the team of doctors, yeah. They don't know how to use it.
They don't know how to use it.
All right, so I think maybe to summarize a little bit, because we've kind of got a lot of things going on here. All right, so I'll do my best. So maybe I think it's pretty clear what you're saying. Now, what Tracy's saying is, so there's an integrative model of health, right? So what Tracy's saying is that, since Jokowi back during his reign basically did an audit. From that audit, it was clear to see that billions of dollars, probably not just rupiah, were leaving the country for medical tourism elsewhere, which we've discussed before. So then it comes down the line, and then we have Sanur being a special economic zone, and that's what they're referring to as Sanur, which Tracy's saying has its own separate immigration systems, policies and practices, which is trying its best to avoid the challenges of the system, which Alex was talking about, which can be certain well-placed unions and so on that are incentivized to not have international doctors, for example, be working in the community here. Okay. So going back to what Tracy said, which was where Bali stands by itself. And this is really what the future of health is really all about, actually, which is so this integrative model of health. And Tracy, help me if I need it. It's West meets East. So what you basically have is that you come in, whichever way you come in, be it a health center, be it a hospital, and so on. You get tested using the most up-to-date Western science, which, as Tracy was saying, and Alex agree, in that hospital, the Bali International Hospital, which I've seen, I'm not a medical professional, but this equipment is phenomenal. Like, it looks like you're out of like a Buck Rogers movie or something. Show my age. Right. So you come in through that route of diagnosis, so you know exactly what you have. The first thing, which I didn't mention, is that when you come into Bali, your nervous system relaxes because of a whole bunch of things we can get into another time. Not necessarily a blue zone, but Bali has a special energy. So your nervous system relaxes, which means that if you cut yourself, your nervous system is in good condition, it will heal itself. But if your nervous system is basically stressed, overwhelmed, scared, not confident, then it doesn't heal so fast. So in other places like Singapore, and so on, they don't have that same that climate where your nervous system automatically relaxes once you reach touch ground, right? Okay, so touch ground, Western, now you've got your diagnosis. What Tracy's saying is that here you can now decide, well, how do I want to treat that? I can continue down the Western route, of which is being upgraded and updated every month and every year here in Bali / Indonesia at large, or I can choose one of the Eastern philosophies, modalities.
It's not even Eastern, it's science and technology.
Wonderful.
It's what Germany's use. I use that as an example. Say from Australia, like with the cancer diagnosis over the last 30 years, people would fly, if they didn't want to opt for what was being served there, to there, and they'd get dendrite therapy, or they'd get some kind of things back in the day. All right, they'd do the IVs, a whole realm of things to get the cells and the mitochondria happening again. We've got all that here, and it's allowed in hospitals. In Germany, it's only in clinics. This is what's nice. So the law is behind that. So now it's about, and we have white Westerners here, we've got access to people who can help upgrade this knowledge. In the ER department, like I said, you go into Australia, you've got 16 doctors on you, and they're just going for it straight away. So here they can learn that as well. We've got so many, especially the younger doctors are coming up out of med school. They're hungry for all this information. And here, because we've got so many nationalities here, they've got the opportunity to be shaped. Yeah.
And I attended, it was like an introduction for a small group of people, Bali International Medical Hospital. And obviously the board at the hospital, some of the major players were basically there. And one of the things that they're bringing up, this idea of, everyone knows what a sea turtle is? Just raise your hand. Sea turtle. Yep. Sea turtle. Good. So sea turtles find their way back home somehow. Wherever they go in the world, they find a way back to the beach where they kind of started life. So what the government is focusing on, one of the areas, if there's a challenge bringing international doctors in for different reasons, then why don't we basically create a package where the Indonesian doctors who are practicing overseas in some of these very illustrious medical facilities, hospitals and so on, like a sea turtle, how can we then create the opportunity for that to bring them back into Bali, Indonesia at large, and practice there. So this is one of the other things which I just noticed.
And that way Bali will have something that nowhere else has got. All right, because it's a health journey. You know yourself for the family. Yeah, you've got to address everything. And most, especially if it's disease, they're looking at cancer over there. We're talking emotions there, emotional reset. So there's so many, they can understand these big centres to attach to the hotels or health resorts and have the retreats that people need the support. You need to go through that. Yeah.
Yeah, Alex, we'll add one. Yep.
Yeah. So Tracy mentioned this before, but the good doctors here are really good. And unlike in some places elsewhere in the world, they also really care a lot. I can count on one hand the number of times that I've had a personal WhatsApp from a treating doctor to me about a patient of mine under our care, just to make sure that we were all good and everyone's on the same page. That's incredible. So like people do, and to your point, the younger doctors that are come up are the education system has come so far. The practical part of basically being an intern has come super far. So like it's getting much better quickly. We've got the right equipment. We're maybe going to have the turtles come back. I mean, we have some of the most incredible doctors that have won some of the most incredible accolades that are Indonesian, that work overseas, that want to come home and can't come back and can't get a license because they have to repeat the entire medical program here. All the curriculum, as far as I'm aware, right? No one would make that choice. The other thing that I think is interesting is, a place that Tracy and I collaborate, at least in our thinking, and not yet in our actions, let's say, is this idea of the fact that there is so much out there in terms of like ways people get better, and there's not like one right way to do it. And when we talk, I always say at Podmo we stick to our knitting. Like we're very much about like diagnostic medicine, the way that the international standard, because that's kind of our bread and butter, and we want to kind of stick to what we're good at because we know we're good at it, and we want to be able to provide that as a trusted resource to people. But that doesn't mean that I sit in my office or I tell my doctors, or we even say to people like, there's not a place for holistic medicine and other stuff out there. We just don't have an opinion about it. So like take our lab, we run the best blood tests in Bali or whatever. We're one of the handful of labs that are super good at doing this, right? Take our lab tests and then do your thing. Do your own analysis, right? There's a bunch of people that love to do this blood analysis here, and I'm
about to help him get this.
Yeah, and like that's awesome. Just let us give our result with the standard medical thing to the patient, and they can have the data that's theirs, and then we'll give it also to you with their consent, and then you can do your own thing, and that's great. And we want to help you do that and help them explore that if that's what they want. But that's that's not our knitting. Yeah. And so part of what you were saying about Bali with, you come and you have this experience, there's all sorts of stuff that you can get access to here that's unique to this place, that sets the island up for delivering such an incredible, empowering, differentiated experience. But back to your sea turtles, both with doctors, also with patients, right? We got to win first by convincing people that live here that they don't need to go abroad, that they can stay and get good care here. And it's my opinion that there is a very clear set of things that's absolutely the case with, and there are some things that's kind of like a question mark, and then there are some things that I would even say like go to somewhere else, go to Singapore, go to we like to send people to Penang, like go to Thailand, go wherever, but it's not for your basic medical. Like we can, like us and others, we can do that here just as well and save you $1,000 in travel costs and 2 days of wasted time. So
yesterday and we got a few questions left, and then we'll go to questions here. So in this biohacking Bali, one of the things which haven't got Tracy's buy-in on yet, but I think it works okay. Indonesia, right? An incredible nation, as again, let's start from the beginning. Almost 280 million people, close to it. 700 plus languages, 500 plus cultures. Keep going. Average age 27, and there's a lot more data and details. But some of the principles which I personally love. My wife is Indonesian, kids half Indonesian, half Australian. One of them is gotong royong, right? Which is the community comes together to solve a challenge facing the community. And so when I look at that and look at just tonight, yesterday it was very evident that we had people from all over the world, different areas of biohacking, from doctors, practitioners, patients, health seekers, and so on, that it is something which I'm noticing right now between you two, it is something of how do we help each other? So you're saying, that you stick to the traditional, and how does that traditional kind of fit in and collaborate with what Tracy's referring to as Health Hub being this intermediary, which is connecting the dots, to personal health and so on. So I think that there's a phenomenal opportunity here for this to happen, and I think we're on that road. But just the last question here, what is a personal medical plan, and how do I make one? So what is a personal medical plan, and how do I make one?
Okay, so we talked quite few times tonight about how everyone's body is different and everyone has a different set of circumstances, maybe family circumstances, maybe personal circumstances, maybe it's financial, maybe it's, I don't know, something else, some pre-existing health condition. So everyone's different, and especially when, I talked about the understanding the risk you're taking by living here earlier. It's important to kind of have and you don't have to have everything planned out, but have a rough idea of how you want to deal with certain situations as they would arise, right? So one of the things that, and going back to several other conversations tying back tonight, is, and I hope the SEZ solves this. I don't see how that's possible, but it could. The supply chain for medicine here is very challenging. Well, for all medical supplies here is very challenged, including medicine. And so, you don't see a ton of people here that have chronic conditions, because if you do, say for example you're diabetic, and at one point there was difficulty getting insulin because it's made from pig pancreases, and so it was not halal. But I think we've solved that one. But there, I have some friends that are diabetic, and they have to hoard insulin, long-acting and short-acting insulin, because the supply runs out once a year, and it's not sure when it's going to get back. I have a friend that has ADHD, and she's on medication, and she needs it to be productive, and it just disappeared for 60 days. And that, and she went to go fill the prescription, they're like, well, you can't get it. And so I went and I talked to all my medical suppliers. I said, does anybody have this? Can I get this anywhere? And the answer that we've always found is you have to hand carry it from Singapore or wherever you can get it, but you have to hand carry the prescription. And that's not the solution, right? So it's a little bit self-selective for pre-existing conditions, depending on the severity, obviously. And it's difficult, it's one of the things that I think these elder care facilities are going to be faced with, that to recruit people to come and, kind of get old and I don't go into hospice here, is that the slope is pretty steep when the care is limited. But so, I always tell people look, if you have a broken bone, to the extent of, compound fractures and surgery and pins and ortho and, all these different things, you're probably okay here, depending on, hopefully you have some good coordinated care and whatever. But always make sure that you check for a brain injury. Always make sure that your spine is stabilized, and no one else is going to make sure that happens besides you. So that's, again, back to your medical plan. And then, if you have something that's emergent, meaning an emergency that you're unexpected, and you have time, you'd be surprised how few medical ailments have no warning signs, right? I mean, there's most severe medical issues. You kind of know there's something wrong with you for several weeks before you have it becomes urgent or significantly dangerous, life-threatening. And so if it's tingly or weird neuro stuff or weird heart stuff, just go get it checked. And then you have time to make a decision. Then you have time to get off the island if you need to go, do something complicated. But at the very least, what we recommend for Podmacare patients is if you're over 40 and you're male, get a colonoscopy. If you're over 40 and you're alive, get a contrast CT and figure out what your calcium score is, because heart disease is the leading killer of humans, right? And it's very easy to get a calcium score because it's very easy to diagnose. It's very easy to read one. If your calcium score is above 0, you should start taking statins prophylactically. Right? So, and I know that Tracy probably doesn't agree with me because this is down the pharmaceutical path, but the point is there are things you can do preventatively. Get a full medical every 2 years, right? These are things that you and everyone in this room and everyone listening to the channels here, you have that ability to do that, and you can do that here very easily. And so just like with your car, you get it tuned up every 3, 6, 12 months, do that with your body, and you can do all of this other holistic stuff, and you can be active and fit. And so much, I'm sure you guys heard yesterday how much of this starts with nutrition and taking care of your body and good sleep, right? And that's all easy to come by here, to be honest. But you can also do the kind of the checking the oil of your human body very easily, and that does a lot for you. And then hold yourself accountable to it, right? It's easy to be I don't, this is really uncomfortable to get a colonoscopy. I'm not doing that this decade. I'll wait surely I can wait till I'm 50. And then, you get colon cancer, prostate cancer, you're dead. That's not a great outcome. It's such a low discomfort for high value of preventing something that's it's pretty much terminal, right? And so, Yeah, I mean, I think that it's good to have a plan of where you would go. You know, we often recommend Gleneagles in Penang. They have English-speaking doctors. It's half the price of Bumrungrad in Thailand. It's easy to get to. You can get there on a direct flight. You know, and I could go on and on. And you know, there's other places that we refer patients to depending on the situation. But you know, kind of have an idea of what in this situation, what would I do? Maybe write it down and send an email to yourself. That way, if your significant other finds you on the floor and you're twitching or something, they can they can get you in an ambulance, and then they can search your email and your phone on the ambulance to oh, I want to make sure that I don't go to Sangla or whatever the answer is, right? And then you know, if you want to become a Padma Care member, I'm happy to sit down with you and talk to you in detail about what that means. But I think that you benefit yourself by having kind of just a general plan of how you want to approach it, and have it be realistic of not, I fell off my motorbike, I'm going to airlift to Singapore, because it's not realistic.
Got it. Now, two things. So, Tracy, anything you want to add to that? And we have our final question. We go to questions here, which is, what are the barriers, which we've covered quite a few, the barriers of Bali becoming this medical destination. But before we go there, based upon what Alex just said, is there anything coming up for you you'd like to clarify?
Yeah, so the medical plan, I think really having our ID and having some things written down. In other countries, they've got a guardianship paper as well. That's good to have. But you can be unconscious very quickly here, so having some ID on you and some numbers too quickly. But the main thing then, if you are conscious, is that you've got options. You've got a navigator, you've got an advocate, people that know what's happening, and that's what this is about. The aim I'm seeing is that we have some kind of HHB room in every hospital, which mainly just the hospitals. But when they ask about how is it paid, well, they can pay for that. We have some people there that can just give knowledge and explain what surgery is happening. If you go to Penang, they all speak very good English and they over-explain things, so that's why people like it. But by nature, it's not happening here yet. So that we can fill that gap. Whatever gap there is, it's about filling it. What is the issue? We do it like that, yeah. And
then just to quickly, after you're going to give this response, the barriers for Bali to become a medical destination. Then any questions that you have here, we'll go straight after that.
Just one quick thought on building on Tracy. My personal opinion, take it for what it is. If you're in the ER, the UGD, whatever you want to call it here, and you're trying to make a plan, it's too late, right? So that's why it's better to have these things set up, talk to Tracy, get one of her advocates, talk to us, get one of our advocates in your corner, so that if something does happen, we have the information we need. We can be your advocate and benefit the quality of the care that you receive, because it happens way too often where people, especially expats, sorry, I'm going to go on a little bit. The way that the care is set up here, families and neighbors and uncles and aunts and your friend on the street and the guy that owns the warung at the end of the corner are all coming to the hospital if you get hurt, if you're local. And as expats, we don't have the same support system here, and that's the baseline expectation. And so even I've had patients that go in and their wife is like, their husband, I don't want to sit in the hospital room for the next 4 days, right? I got stuff to do. And so even in the case where they do have support system, it's not set up that way, right? And so think about how you want that to go, and then set up the tools around you. It's not expensive.
Yeah, I can tell you some horror stories, and
not tonight.
No. Just like some serious situations where they had to fly a whole team of doctors from Brazil for this particular person because they couldn't get the care, and to find even a nurse available. So to have something like Padma Care and that, we have a teams. We're also looking at aftercare, like in between, like you're out of hospital, but you're not okay for a hotel or a villa or at home. There's a couple places with our Medical Tourism Association chairman, who's with us, Dr. Patra, up in Mengwi. We've already got a place there. It can be like a seniors place. A lot of ones, they can go and stay there. It's quite reasonable. Some of the others have set up villas that are sterile for after surgery, because you don't want to go into a normal hotel. So there's all these. They can be quite costly. But we also have the Finnish franchise Hovi, care for aged care, but they can do short time. And that can also service as a place for people to go in between hospital and going back to normal life. And some of them were only like $1 million a night, which is so reasonable. Yeah.
Now, just
Feel safe, yeah.
Yeah. So just the last question before we go to questions here, and let's keep this one short, because I think we've dealt with a lot of it already, is, what are the barriers of Bali becoming or being this medical destination?
Well, we need more of those things that we just said. And that's what we're saying.
Just one part.
I've got QR codes. If you're interested, you can fill out some forms.
Closer, Tracy, closer.
If you can fill out some forms if you would like to help or set up something where the gaps are, and then we can help shape it. And that will match what Indonesia's already doing very well. Okay, but the main thing is the advocacy. I'm thinking there has to be more.
Okay.
I just add a couple things. One is that there's a lot of smart people working on some of the structural stuff, which is needs to change to have a big impact. I think there's a lot of people that are working on trying to get the sea turtles to stay here instead of going abroad and coming back. I think if we can prove to wealthy Indonesians, expats in our communities and otherwise that they can get care that they expect and need here, it will go a long way towards fixing the reputation of what we do. And I think Bali is uniquely suited to have a lot of that because of all the things that are happening. The big challenge has in Bali has historically been that the Jakartas, the Surabaya, Makassar, these other places have, I would say, like wealthy families that have a legacy that they're trying to demonstrate by investing in a first world medical facility. And it's like a bit of like a diamond in the tiara where they're saying, hey, look, I'm helping people and we're getting great care. And they're not like commercial, or they're not wildly commercial enterprises because of the drag of BPJS. In Bali, we haven't had that previously. And so we've had like this lack of first world facilities with first world doctors that knew how to operate them. And it is the opportunity for the international hospital, and they can recruit great doctors, whether it be foreign doctors or local doctors, right? The local doctors know how to do an X-ray. They know how to run an MRI. They know how to read an MRI and an X-ray and a CT and all these different things. So, it's possible. And then there's all this technology. There's AI. We're doing some work on doing like ML, machine learning impressions on X-rays as a first pass. That's really exciting. And we're not the only ones. Like we're not the smartest ones at all. But that's where the industry is going. And there's a lot of like leveling that can happen there. And so like we've been all night talking about the barriers. And I think that it's important I think that's kind of why we wanted to close out with this, is that there's always been, as long as I've been here, there's been a lot to be hopeful for about Indonesia, from the demographics that you referenced earlier, to the intangibles of the lifestyle here, to the fact that the medical field has come a heck of a long way in the last, I would say, 5 to 7 years. The ingredients in the stew are all there. We just kind of got to let them simmer. And there's a lot of people that are patiently pushing it forward. And, I think, like you were saying, the collaboration of like-minded individuals, that kind of, like, one of the things that I really enjoy about working with Tracy is, she's kind of the connector. She's the maven, but she's bringing together people that are kind of focused on their own mission. And that's really how we are at Padma. Like, I love that there's people that are doing Reiki and acupuncture and ozone and hyperbaric and all these different things that like are a huge spectrum of proven and unproven and work for some people but haven't gone through a phase 2 study or whatever it was that you think is important. There should be a place for that in medical care. Like, unless it's doing harm to people, right? That's what the scientific method's all about. I think we've gotten away from that recently with all this, global pandemic, COVID and everything else. Is like, trust your public health officials, and they had no more idea than anybody else what was going on, but they had to make the call, right? And so it's like an impossible position. And like, I hope that like the industry in general is going back more towards like a scientific method approach of like, hey, have a hypothesis, prove it true or false, right? And do it at scale so you have, whether it works on average or not, right? And that's a huge opportunity, and there's now all these people with platforms like this one, Huberman and these other guys, and the Brian Johnson and these guys. Like, they're doing a service to humanity by taking risk, and they're their own lab, patient, right? So you can't fault them for that. But it is an N of one, right? So if they're hawking the supplements and things they're choosing, is know that every human is different, right? And maybe our genome is 99.8% the same, but we all react differently to all kinds of different things. Just like I like, whatever. I like spiciness and I like sambal and he doesn't, or whatever it is, So I think that the stew is ready to be cooked. And we can just hope that it goes.
Thank you, brother. So questions, anybody? Yeah, you have the mic? Yeah.
One short question. What is biohacking? Maybe one sentence. But quick.
It's just biology, and it's like hacking. How can we work with our body? Our body will heal itself. Okay. So the medically informed biohacking is the event that we were meant to have we are having in June, is the doctors who would, how do I explain it? A different version of biohacking, what we're saying, they are doctors, they're integrative doctors, but we use other tools to bring the biology back into state. Once it's into state, after we've tested everything and made sure everything's right, then we add, it might be minerals or natural things, lifestyle medicine. Then we hack it with our own lifestyle. You become responsible. But we first test everything. Find out where you are, what your baseline is, and then map out a journey, and we hack it.
Okay.
All right, so you understand it because
I hope.
Yeah, because even the doctor, they want to call it biohacking, these doctors, and I'm saying, and then the Indonesian doctor, what's biohacking? It's about your biology and making it more healthy.
So the whole thing.
Yeah, whole
Okay,
health.
good. So now a question to Alex. I didn't hear about this Padma service. So the Padma service is something what costs Indonesian rupiah 350,000 a month for family. No matter if you have 5 or 6 kids or 2.
Lucky you.
Yeah, he has a few kids.
He's got a few kids.
Wait. So, but now the question. I mean, one thing is the advice what you give and the right persons the right doctors, etc., etc. But who gives the advice for all these PPGS and all these different kind of health insurances what we have? Is there also a kind of an idea, or that you say, okay, if you have this insurance, you get that, and if you have this insurance, you get that, in a case when I call you?
I think this is probably a beer afterwards because this is such a long conversation.
Oh shit! Okay.
But let me try to give you the 30-second version. Yeah. As I mentioned before, BPJS I think is an excellent product for the consumer if you're making less than 10 million a month, which is a proxy. It's not like if you make 10,500,000 rupee a month, you don't qualify. I'm just saying, like, if you're really, one of the things about BPJS is it doesn't value your time, because Indonesians, for whatever reason, for good reasons, are willing to sacrifice their time to save money. So they will go and wait for 4 hours to see the specialist nephrologist. Or a good friend of mine tore her MCL and she's been waiting for 4 months to get surgery. So till she was at the top of the list. She's willing to do that because she's going to pay $400 for the surgery, right? So if your time value, or you have a reason, you're retired, say, or whatever, you don't have you're just living the dream. I don't know, you're surfing and then you don't have to do the rest of the day, and so you can wait to see the doctor if you have to. Like, that may be a good value for you, right? The one that we always come up against with BPJS is people that get in these accidents, usually motorbikes, and they need to get orthopedic surgery. And when you start to talk about things being put inside your body, so prosthesis, but not like a fake arm. I'm talking about like pins and plates and rods and things like that. BPJS typically doesn't cover titanium. It only covers stainless steel. And stainless steel there's a reason the rest of the world doesn't use it. It's because it stinks and it rots inside your body, and it gets rusted inside your body, which causes an infection, and it's really generally a matter of time. I mean, Again, I'm talking in generalities, but so like people, like if that's something you want to avoid and you can afford to avoid it, then I would suggest going up. The problem with the insurance model here is that there's no space in the middle between BPJS and international care. There's really nothing. There's no option, and it's something that we at Padma would love to address over the next decade or two, but it's not close to coming. And so then you're really stuck between BPJS as an option, and then the international insurance market, which is quite varied, and it starts at the roughly $2,000 a year for a high deductible plan, which would basically cover you against catastrophic risk. I got stage 3 cancer and I need to get chemo, or I have to get brain surgery or whatever like that. And then as you get to more full coverage and lower deductibles that are like not eye-watering, you end up paying quite a bit more money, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a year, and for many people that's a lot of money, and especially with a family. I mean, family coverage is more expensive. Than if you're talking about maternity care, you have another choice. So it's again back to the health, the personal medical plan. Like, you kind of need to have a personal insurance plan as well, and it depends on a lot of personal things, and we feel pretty good about, until we can offer a better insurance program, we feel pretty good about telling people, hey, look, you can self-fund your care with Padma and be in pretty good hands, and then have this super high deductible coverage, and then if it gets really bad, you can get out, or you can get the surgery that you need with the right prosthetics or whatever, the right screws in your shoulders or whatever it is. So that's my short answer.
Oh man, Alex, you've got that presence. Like, just having your numbers means my family is already safe. I'm so grateful for your, just the giving, the energy of you, just like giving all these informations, and just a lot of insights and enlightened my understanding a lot. So thank you so much. My question is,
welcome.
What infrastructure investments are needed to make Bali a top medical tourism destination?
Wow, that's such a good question. To be honest with you, I think the investments have already been made. The equipment is here. The infrastructure is really here. And again, I don't know much about this SEZ, the Special Economic Zone. I've heard a lot of people talk. I've heard a lot of opinions about it that all vary. So I'll kind of wait to see how that goes. I think the two things that I would say that I see as structural issues that could be resolved relatively easily are, one, changing the incentive structure to make sure that you have very qualified doctors on call to actually operate 24/7. That's what a level 1 trauma center is, right? And that's what we say we do here. But what happens is the doctors go home, they're sleeping, the nurses are scared to call them, they don't get them up. The on call, the physician, the generalist physician that's standing by says, "Oh, just don't bother them. We can wait till the morning," and then the patient dies. Or they say, "Oh well, we'll bore a hole in the brain to relieve some of the pressure because that's the most urgent thing," and then they do the surgery in the morning without running a new MRI on the brain, inexplicably, and then things have changed obviously in 6 hours. So having 24/7 staffed ORs instead of having ORs that sit empty at night but are ER ORs would be really, really something. The second thing I think would be helpful is, and I don't really, we have a problem with the supply chain here, and it's not because there's not a will to bring medical stuff in, it's because of the regulatory environment. The organization that regulates that is called BPOM. It's very, very difficult to work with. They make medical equipment all but inaccessible to 90% of the medical community. There are very few high-quality machines. I won't get into the details in the structure, but it's just very difficult to execute. It also extends to medicine, and one of the things we like to recommend to guests, and I'd recommend everyone here, is there's a dengue vaccine. Dengue impacts hundreds and thousands of people in Bali every year. The vaccine is not perfect against all 4 strains of dengue. There's all these qualifications because it's a medical thing that has tests against a 30,000 patient medical trial, second phase 2 trial, phase 3 trial. But it's really effective, and massively improves quality of life, and it's 850,000 for dose for 2 doses, 90 days apart. It's like easy to do, right? And it's so, I don't know if you had dengue, but it's not nice. Like I've had it twice. It's so bad. 3 weeks down and whatever, and then it takes a long time to recover. So, if we could fix the supply chain and make sure we had access to those things, we have all these patients come back from overseas that are under medical care for like the kind of rare forms of cancer. There's now all these like long tail, bespoke, whether it's stem cell therapies or RNA therapy or things like that are kind of very niche, which have been developed at great cost outside and validated against a pretty small market, so they're very expensive. But because of the way that BPOM works, it's impossible to get them authorized here, and so you just can't get access to them. So you're like shooting off your foot if you're saying, hey, we want to be the what is it called, the medical destination, and you can't get the therapy that you're on to deal with your rare cancer or something else. It's incredible, so there needs to be some political will to change that and to allow us to participate with the rest of the world without having to weigh in. I mean, every country should have the ability to weigh in on the valuations they make against devices and machines and drugs and things like that. But if the global community is saying, hey, this drug is helping people, then we should also give it a rider and say hey, let's get people on this thing if they need it. So those would be helpful.
Powerful, brother. Just one more question to Tracy, brother, if you don't mind. Thank you so much, Alex, for that.
No worries.
So, Tracy, I've known you 5-6 years now, and I love your energy. I used to live in your village. Do you remember that? So how can I love, because this is two kind of energy here. So how can we combine medical treatment and also with spiritual energy? And that's what I sense also from you. You speak a lot from the heart and then heal a whole being and all that. So just around that.
So when you talk like that, you're actually talking about the heart of Bali and the heart of the doctors here. So what we take is the medical. We start medical, we use the science, the technology, and then we go to the health and wellness journey. And that's how this is the only way that Indonesia, Bali can be different than the other places. If you go to, I say to people, they've got the big tumour, if you go there, you can only do so much chemotherapy, you will die. Eventually, sometimes that's the prognosis for it. So here, what we've got the opportunity is all sorts of other options. Once we know actually what's causing something, we can integrate it. And then when you talk about, not so much spiritual, but the whole mindset and the energy behind disease. So what we're talking about is age in reverse and disease in reverse the last weekend. How we do that. Why does it? We're looking at the why, and we use all the testing and the diagnostics, and that's how together the first entry point, people don't do something till they've usually got a diagnosis, the wake-up call, and then they start being very conscious about health and life, or they get to a certain age. So this is where we say get all the checks now, because it's just the statistics are there. I've got nephews and that now with colon cancer and that in Australia, they're not 40. They're just maybe just over 30. Australia tests everyone. They used to be 50. They're dropping it back. So just this knowledge, having people that know and understand this, and then creating models. And that's where we're talking about understanding hormones or whatever other testings. That's out of these guys' leagues. There's a ton of people doing that.
All right. Another question? Yeah. All right. This is a really interesting question. Remember, though, tonight is about Bali, but all good.
I get it. So, about the BPJS and the whole things. So, I did screening with BPJS many times at hospital and clinics. The result shows that I have nothing. I'm perfectly healthy. Okay, but then I went to Malacca and Penang, and they show that I have something, but it's not malignant. It's minor. It's treatable. They can give you antibiotics. It's something's very small. It's not concerning. So what I'm asking is, how do you convince that making Bali is the destination for health? Because I did screening at the hospital, they say I'm perfectly healthy, but then I went to Penang, I went to Malacca. Yeah, you have something, but it's not malignant. It's something very tiny, something small. Antibiotics, 1-2 weeks, it's gone. They check again, it's gone. So how do you convince us, come to Bali to check your body, and come to Bali that this is the destination for it?
So one of the frameworks that I think is helpful to think about healthcare in Indonesia and in Bali when you go is everything is looked at through this BPJS lens. Okay, and BPJS is optimized for value, not for time, not for thoroughness, not for completeness, value. Okay, and so without knowing the specifics of your situation, my sense is that if you're talking about value, there's a threshold at which whatever you have going on isn't crossing into a concerning territory. And so not only are they not going to recommend you do something about it, but perhaps they haven't been trained on how to recognize it. That's quite common, to be honest. So again, I don't. This is probably not appropriate to talk about your specific medical issues in this format, but like I'll use generalities. So like I have several friends that have issues with ortho. We do a lot of athletics and things, and so they had a knee issue, and they went and got a scan, and one of the things I joke about here is that the impressions that they do from an MRI are awful, because they just basically say, oh, you might have everything, which is the alternative to you have nothing. But it's equally as medically insane. Okay, it's completely unhelpful, right? And it always happens. It's like the CYA version of being a doctor. Okay, and so how do you make Bali different? You get more people that want to have care that's not BPJS care, and so you basically train your doctors to a different standard, a different heuristic. We spent 15 years training our doctors to understand what workplace injury looks like, or higher prevalence of workplace injury with these repetitive, long hour standing jobs, and they're really good at it because they know exactly what to look for, right? And so my internist is really good at identifying scoliosis, and if it's scoliosis that's probably going to impact you or probably is okay. It's just repetition. So I don't want to try and diagnose you from here, but my suggestion is like, if you feel that something's wrong with you and someone tells you there isn't, and it happens a couple of times, don't stop. Like, you're the best judge of your own body. And so whether it's going to see a BPJS check or going somewhere else or doing what you need to do, like, be persistent, because no one is going to advocate for your health like you are. Anything else?
Just find out what's causing it.
Sir, yes, microphone.
Yes, I have a question about...
straight in the microphone.
I'm pretty close to the microphone.
Okay, I can't hear you. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. Yeah.
I have a question about getting an estimate of how much something will cost in Bali. I went to a hospital and I made an appointment with a doctor, and I asked the person who was handling the appointment to give me a list of prices of various procedures, and she said, we don't do that. And I was wondering, is that just that particular hospital, or is that a general practice in Bali?
My experience is that no hospital is going to do that for you. One, because frankly, there's a lot of other costs involved with any procedure. So they have like rental equipment costs and specialist costs, and then there's a separate anesthesiologist cost and so forth, all the different consumables.
I asked for a ballpark.
Yeah, well, they're petrified that their answer is going to be out of the ballpark, and then you're going to be upset. And they honestly don't know, because it's a completely separate department. So I don't know what else advice to give you besides become a Podmacare member, because that's what we do. I guess. Do you have any ideas?
Look, part of it is this. So guest here came later,
yeah.
So he probably doesn't even know what Podmacare do. Okay. So maybe, and it's okay because we're here, maybe just explain quickly what Podmacare do again, and then that I think will answer the question.
Super quickly, Podmacare is an advocacy and concierge service, $350,000 a month. We answer your medical questions like these, 8 to 8, 7 days a week. If my junior folks that are your personal healthcare advisor can't answer the question, they refer that question to one of our case managers who's a doctor, and they can answer it. And we spend 50 billion rupiah in Bali a year working with hospitals, doing procedures and understanding what those things are. We also have a team of people that validate the bill that comes out of the hospital. Some hospitals are better than others. All of them make mistakes, whether it's justified or not. And then when it's not, we have a reasonable history of being able to get some deduction from those things. So that's what we do. Yeah.
Great. All right, we have one more question over here. If we pass the mic, Jonathan. Yeah. So, yeah, we can quickly do it. You want to grab it? Yeah, thank you. Not across camera, but it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Grab a seat behind you. No problem. All good.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. I've learned a lot tonight. It's been really great. Apologies for the camera.
Brother, listen, I left. I mean, it's okay, man.
All good.
I mean, it's okay. You're good.
So we've talked a lot about making Bali a destination relative to other major medical centers outside of Indonesia. But how does I don't really fully understand how Bali compares to the rest of Indonesia. Right? Indonesia is a big country, 280 million people, many languages. I guess the root of my question comes from the services that are available here versus other parts of Indonesia. For example, I have some friends in Jakarta who can access Ozempic, a new drug that's taking the world by storm. Here, maybe not so much. So I guess it's kind of a supply chain availability question, and that can be for Alex, but also Tracy. There are other beautiful islands in Indonesia that also have amazing energy, amazing people, things like that. What are other options in Bali that are also more integrated, or than Bali that are also integrated, or is that not something people go for?
Let me speak to the medical side first, then you can do the integration side, right? So we have found through experience that Jakarta and Surabaya have both the facilities and the doctors that are roughly on par with anything else you'll find in Southeast Asia. So if my family had an issue where they needed to get somewhere quickly, I would not send them to Singapore. I'd send them to Jakarta. Because they're going to get better care and they're going to get it sooner. They're going to get equivalent care and they're going to get it sooner.
Right.
And a lot of times that really matters. Specifically to the Ozempic question, which is, for anybody who doesn't know,
for example,
is a GLP-1. It's a antagonist that impacts your appetite and has been originally developed for diabetes control, but also the same formula, the same drug has been used for weight loss with a different brand name, but it's the same drug called Wegovy. And there's now 8 different GLP-1s in the market, and there's now triple antagonists and so forth. It's a very established, perhaps the medical indicator is not well established, but the treatment is established very well. Back to the supply chain question, there's this group of internist medicine association in Indonesia that's extremely concerned that if they prescribe Ozempic for weight loss, that they will not have access to it for people with diabetes, which is a valuable concern. 7 years ago. 7 years on, there's now hundreds of millions of doses being produced a year. There's no way that the global supply is going to the global demand is going to outstrip that. There are, I guess, supply chain disruption possibilities, but the point is, there is so much reason to give people this as an option. And so we've actually been working, it's a great question, it plays right into our wheelhouse. We've been working for 6 months to a year trying to figure out a way to bypass this weird bottleneck. And so we recently identified a combination of a nutritionist and an internist who are able to treat patients with this regime, and then patients taking this drug. It's an injectable, a once-a-week injectable, and so they should be under a doctor's care. And so we're excited to kind of get that underway. And so back to the conversation about Bali being a medical destination, all of these things just takes a ton of effort and focus and time and energy. And that was one we really cared about because we had several members saying, hey, I really want to get this. Why can't I get it? And they're like, well, we could get it in Jakarta, but then I can't be under a doctor's care and so forth. and we worked the problem a long time and then found a solution. And I think it's one of the things that Tracy's doing as well, is like working the problem with a dedicated set of people with a dedicated focus. And I think you knock over time, you knock it down, you wear them down, right? It's like the international doctors here. So
Okay. Thank you.
Tracy, for the integrative version of that. So the question was, he was saying that Indonesia is a large place. We're focused here in Bali. How does the facilities, services rate in other areas of Indonesia compared to Bali, basically?
It's not that. It's that $11 billion goes to overseas countries, not just Bali. We're talking Indonesian domestic market. Indonesia's got a problem because an Indonesian doesn't actually trust the doctors here. They've got amazing, from our perspective, they've got robotic doctors in some of the hospitals in Jakarta, doing, especially for scoliosis. They're working very closely with, I think, the Ramsay Group from Australia. So you've got the same hospital system there. And they're amazing doctors. Mm-hmm. But it's a trust thing.
Right.
It's a trust for some reason, yeah.
Okay, and Bali has the best integrated care, you would say, like in all of Indonesia. There's a reason people would come here, like outside of Bali. It's not really the draw.
It's 85% is stress with disease. Most issues, it doesn't matter if it's heart, cancer, or whatever, they're lifestyle issues, diabetes. When we change our physiology, then we can change what's happening in our body. Right. All right, so that's what Bali represents.
Right.
It's a health journey.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks for the question. So we'll begin to wrap up now. You can pass the mic to our guest. Now, Brenda mentioned before about an app on Android phones, but because I haven't seen it, I can't really comment on it. So I won't put that in on this one, but I appreciate you drawing attention to it. Yeah. Maybe another episode. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so look. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask in a minute, Alex, if are there any other points? Tonight we're talking about how to find better medical care in Bali, and I think it's been incredibly comprehensive. So number one, thank you very much, because even just that opening stanza for the first question, my mind was already, I need to watch this on replay. By the way, those watching on Instagram Live has been interrupted 3 times. Very sorry. Check YouTube. We'll put it out again to make sure you get the whole stream together. So the question then, in about 2 or 3 minutes, that I'm going to leave you both with is, on this topic tonight, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Because sometimes, as comprehensive as it's been, you've perhaps forgotten something that you really wanted to mention that's relevant to the topic. So we're going to give you that opportunity in 2 or 3 minutes, and then Tracy, the same to you, perhaps letting us know what's coming forward. So whilst we get to that point, I just want to thank our technical partners, Tropical Nomad. We have Guzman, we have Hadis around here as well. So round of applause, please, for the Tropical Nomad team every week. Episode 462. I think we've done 285 or so here, which is fantastic.
What a run.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. Thanks to the audience. And here, remember, the whole point is that it's in person. So it's not really a podcast, it's a talk show. Why? Because we have people that come every week in person, anywhere from 20 people to 120 people. And this really impacts the tone, the vibe, the direction of what happens here. And I think that's such a beautiful way to do it, because then you really get instant feedback from the people that you want to talk to, as opposed to just having this one-way dialogue that is very valuable, but is perhaps missing some of these dimensions that you can add in when there's a live audience here as well, right? So thank you for that. Who else I want to thank? Thank you, obviously, to Tracy, Health Hub Bali. Again, that biohacking event yesterday was fantastic. What a wonderful event for lots of different reasons. So if that's something that you're interested in, remember, go to Health Hub Bali website or Health Hub Bali social media. So that's Facebook as well as Instagram. And there's a number of things coming up. So please watch this space as we go. Brother Alex, thank you very much indeed. Again, like I said before, you've been overwhelming in a good sense of just the amount and the depth of information, which is technical, practical, and someone can look at this and I'm going to look at it again to really get a good idea of what the framework and the structure is behind how do you get better medical care in Bali. All right. So I think that's it for me. So I'd like to hand back then Alex to you, then Tracy to finish us off. And that final question, just to reiterate it, is there anything else, that maybe you want to bring up that maybe you've forgotten or would like to, or to reinforce or reiterate? And you're quite welcome to let people know how to find Padma Care as well. Little plug is okay.
Cool. Thank you very much. That was lovely. So I'm reflecting on the fact that my first bit was a bit negative on the medical system here. I wasn't trying to be negative. I'm just trying to share some knowledge, because knowledge is so powerful when it comes to this stuff. And that's out of, yes, we do this. This is our business. Padma Care is all about trying to do this. And I'm answering these questions because this is what we set up. We set up the business this way, is to address these issues, right? So it plays into our hands. But I also want to do a service to this community and say, hey, knowing this stuff should help you, and can help you and will help you. And then we kind of transition to more of a hopeful, positive kind of thought about the future and where things could go. And I like that, but I'm a pretty practical guy. And so what I want to do is try and leave you with kind of 3 super practical things that can help you immediately or can perhaps be beneficial to remember about medical care in Bali. The first one is there is a ambulance clearing service, and I can give you the number, or I'll put it in the chat, the comments of the YouTube video for you to go find it. That is connected to, it knows where every ambulance in Bali is. And people often will say, oh, take me to Siloam, because they know that name, or whatever, Bali Med or Sangla. And if you're in cardiac arrest, and you don't have an AED, or you have an aneurysm, you have a neurology issue, you need to go to Sangla because it's the only place with an emergency ER, an operating room for cardiology and for neurology 24/7. So it's a little bit out of your hands. But otherwise, call this number, and they don't speak great English, unfortunately, but they know where all the ambulances are, and they'll take you to the nearest triage unit. And that's quite often far better than standing in traffic for 2 hours getting to the hospital, because every hospital has to have their own ambulance, and if you call them, they're going to send their ambulance, and they're going to bring you back to their hospital. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, people that come here get cuts or infections, or a fin cut on a surfboard, or they fall off their motorbike, and they think, I'll just do like I do when I go home. I'll keep it clean, I'll wash it with soap, and it'll get fine. And the thing is, we live in the tropics. Things shouldn't be wet. The whole objective of every laceration, of every open wound, is to get it dry, not to get it wet, and not to get it clean, to get it dry. It will get dry when it is clean, right? So don't get it wet, don't go swimming, don't go in the shower, don't soap and water, don't do that, right? Keep it super dry. And if there's any whiteness on it, it means it's infected, and you need to either scrape it off or go to a clinic to get it scraped off, which is not pleasant, but that's how it heals. So a lot of these people, I've seen so many people that have injuries, persistent injuries, where they let something basically scab over a period of months and months, and there's still infection inside, and it's big, and it's puffy, and it's red, and it never heals. And it's because injury in the tropics is different than injury everywhere else. Right? So that's the second thing. The third thing is Bali belly happens to everyone. I was telling Rob earlier tonight to get 1 strip of Imodium. If you finish that, get a bottle of Norit, which is activated carbon. If you don't get 10, if you're not able to be okay after 10 pills, you need to go see a doctor. And after that, following the instructions of those medicines, you're either good or you need to go to the doctor. So it's like a very clear-cut way to take care of it, and it happens to everybody. So it's something that most people can use as a beneficial thing. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. And that was, we pass the mic to Tracy. That was a very subtle way of Alex being very kind to me, saying, well, where did Rob go? 5 minutes ago. It is true. Tracy, over to you.
What's the question?
She always does this to every week. Takeaways. Yeah, there you go.
For
Come on,
better
Tracy.
care, yeah, you need information. You need to know who to go to. And I just say an advocate or navigator. You can't muck around with that. There is solutions here, and I just say connect with the network. Yeah. At the moment, that's Padma, or with us, we can help support and on another level. Yeah.
Great. Padma Medical Group, Health Hub Bali, round of applause. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much. Next week. Now we're going to do Hadis, quick photo.
Yeah, it's hard. There's no option
So we're
when
going
something
to
happens. Yeah.
get this and get everyone a photo of Hadis first. He's even here. See him.
What are we doing?
Hadis, come on, brother. So what we're going to do a standing photo. After that, you guys come. After. Not yet, Daddy. Not yet, my son.